Everyone. How are you this day? Welcome everybody. Good to see you. It's Joy Day. That's what Thursdays is. I guess Thursday. So good to see you. Thank you for being a part of the adventure. I just speak favor over us all. Nothing missing, nothing broken. And I'll turn myself down in the headphones, and because hearing one of me is enough, no doubt. So welcome. How are y'all doing? So good to see you. Let me get that going, and we'll get that going. Okay. Well, we're firing on all cylinders, so it is all good. So thank you for tuning in. Hey, appreciate it. Make sure you hit the like button, feed the algorithm, make sure you're subscribed, feed the algorithm. Yeah, that's what we are. Seems like we're a food source for a lot these days, far more than what we may have anticipated, as the slide for this day's episode truly is. You know, just look at yourself with a straw out of your head, maybe more than just one, who knows. But in any case, trust you're having a great day. Let's see what else is happening. Hey, be of service to others. Think outside the box all the time. Remember, knowledge cures ignorance and intolerance. So, hey, Cheryl, what's up? Hello, everybody in the chat room. How y'all doing? Thank you, moderators. Hey, David Barry, Joyce, good to see you. John Price, hello, Cheryl. Jack Dreaming, Susie Q, what are you doing? Mr. Floyd, hello. Robin, good to see you. Courtney, thank you, darling. Bernadette, Loretta, good to see everyone. Bonnie, hello. Geez, so good to see you. Hey, Nina, what's happening? Go, good to see you as well. Thank you for being part of this. There's my number. It is an omen that just talks to me all the time. So, and that's really fine. And you know, that's a creation of a thought form, an egregore, that is extended to something else. Remember yesterday, everything is interwoven. Hey, Lost in Space. Good to see you. 8K. Hello, Cowboy 8 Panel. And by the way, AFI wasn't meaning to make you feel bad, if that's how it came off. Wasn't meant that way. Hey, Gaia, good to see you as well. So, Scotty Boy, what's up? Queen of Swords, how are you doing? Good to see you. All right, so let's do a little practicing here. Let's just, I think we've got about 80 plus people just tuning in. So, odd number, because that seems to be the number we're going to end up at, 82, maybe 85. It's right there. So list is done. It's being sent over to two of our people that are helping me on this, Linda Brooks and Courtney Mack. So thank you. And Lucky Smith as well. Appreciate it. So, all right, let's do our practice here. I don't want this so anyone can see in my glasses. So I'm going to focus in. Let's do 30 seconds. 30 seconds is really a long time of dead air. So I'm thinking of one shape. Remember, there's 5. This is the standard ESP test deck. So I'm going to just concentrate on this for a few seconds. Okay. All right. So let's see how many of you actively practice exercising your telepathic abilities. Sorry, Lost in Space. Nope. Bonnie, nope. Crystal Clear, nope. I'll let other people, nope. 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 2 people's gotten it right. Come on, folks. You're going to have to get better than this. Stop the guessing. Look and see. It was a square. And I didn't even put the color to it. Just the square. I think Big Al got that right. I think Jack Dreaming got that right as well. maybe Mr. Floyd. I don't know how long this is. There's about a 30-second delay here. So there you go. Folks, practice, practice, practice. I mean, guessing, you know, we could do the standard test right now. Many of you would test at 20 because 20% is about guessing. So anyway, you see, that's just how it works. And we're going to get better at that. What else is happening? So I'm going to get like right into this. The devil. Probably one of the most interesting egregores created by our species. We create every god. Yeah, we do. I know some people can't handle that. Again, none of these invisible beings that we've elevated up in this ambiguous creation cosmos, and it's why there's no identity. You can't. But if I can plant the thought of a very powerful thought form upon you at a very early age or at a point of crisis, you'd be surprised how it takes the straw and you become part of the smorgasbord. So it just takes practice. I was just seeing some of the comments in there. I love it. All right, we got a lot to do. And you know, this guy right here, as his notes go flying, Eliphas Levi, what an interesting guy. I mean, this book on him has been a fascinating read. It puts so much into perspective as to the myths, superstitions, fears that are so well ingrained in our modern culture. Yeah, you know, technology is nothing more than a demon in a certain set of eyes. It has all the attributes of a demon. Everything about it is demonic. It literally is a vampire that will literally consume you. It will make you part of its ongoing development. All right, so let's get right into this. And thanks for some of the comments. Jenny, True Divine 44, fantastic comments. Lucky Smith, you ought to go back and read the comments from yesterday. Lucky, that was extremely deep dive comment. Loved it. You're getting it. You truly are. I mean, there are many of us that are getting this, but I love it when the expression of your logos is put forth and it becomes the Rhema. That is, so Bonnie, yeah, so let me just tell you about guardian angels. They're also demons. Angels are divine ones, correct? They're the same species. Just kind of makes you tune in. Just being tuned in with self, and I'm just reading some of this. All right. All right, so let's get going. Lots to cover here. This is some good stuff. I mean, when we get into this project, we're going to be a lot more well equipped. So cheers, everyone, whatever libation you have. And if you can't get the book, I do have the book on Mr. Levy. It's well worth the read. All right, so let's get right into here. We left off in kind of in the middle of this chapter. So we're going to push through. It goes on to say that these examples serve to illustrate why Tomberg asserts that the purpose of the Devil Tarot card is not to present the metaphysical dimensions of evil, although he did briefly enter that path at the end of his chapter, but rather to illustrate how individuals can lose their freedom to an entity that they or others have generated, an entity that is an artificial being whose creator becomes its slave. Folks, we're all realizing so much. See, this is where religion, this is where political parties get their power. They wield tremendous influence. And once you give permission for self to become integrated, part of the collective consciousness of that egregore, of that religion, that ideology, that thought, you are no longer your own, but you become an agent. You become a Mr. Smith. Oh, this shit's deep, buddy. And ladies. He compares this process to that of the creation of a tulpa in Tibetan Buddhism. For, in accordance with his experience with them, Elisabeth Levy saw in demons, such as incubi, succubi, the Leonard masters presiding over witches' Sabbaths, and the demons of the possessed, only creations of human will and imagination, projecting individually or collectively their contents into the malleable substance of the astral light, and thus engendering demons, which are therefore engendered in Europe in exactly the same way as in the Tibetan tulpas. Very interesting in this, because I say that the opposite would be true as well. If, as in fact, it is us who creates these beings, it may be because, as many of us have discussed, and it's in the comments, we are in fact nothing more than an egregore ourselves. If we want to take the position in our philosophy course here that if God, if goddess, creator, creatus, put whatever you want in there, ever existed, then it had to exist as a thought. The only conclusion that a reasonable thinking energy could come to is that we're all thoughts. We have found through thought how to make flesh malleable, how we can actually encase ourselves inside of it, how we can possess it, how it allows us to express the spoken thought. Yeah. We continue. Both Elisabeth Levy and Tibetan masters are in agreement not only with respect to the subjective and psychological origins of demons, but also with the respect to their objective existence. Engendered subjectively, they become forces independent of the subjective consciousness that engender them. They are, in other words, magical creations. For magic is the objectification of that which takes its origin in the subjective consciousness. Demons that have not arrived at that stage of objectification, that of an existence separate from the psychic life of their parents, have a semi-autonomous existence that is designated in modern psychology by the term psychological complex. Occultist and author Israel Regardie was also Aleister Crowley's personal secretary and transcriptionist. In several of Regardie's books, he discusses this notion of demons being subjective psychological complexes. This is also a topic of considerable disagreement among Western occultists who insist on a dualistic notion of magical practices being either subjective or objective in nature, but who fail to grasp the juncture where these distinctions overlap and the essentially parasitic nature of these beings. For Thomberg, an egregore is a collective demon whose prime examples in the 20th century can be seen in the political movements of the National Socialism and communism. The specter of communism has grown, engendered by the will of the masses born of despair following the Industrial Revolution in Europe, nourished by the resentment accumulated amongst the masses through generations, armed with dummy intellectuality, which is Hegel's dialectic misconstrued. This specter has grown and continues to make the rounds in Europe and in other continents. Today, already 1/3 of mankind is impelled to bow down before this God and to obey it in everything. Because of Marxism, there is no God or gods. There are only demons in the sense of creations of human will and imagination. This is the fundamental Marxist doctrine of the so-called ideological superstructure. According to this doctrine, it is the economic interest, i.e., the will, which creates, i.e., imagines, ideologies, religions, philosophical, social, and political. For Marxism, all religions are, therefore, only such ideological superstructures, i.e., formations due to the human will and imagination. Marxism, Leninism itself, is only an ideological superstructure, a product of intellectual imagination on the basis of the will having arranged or rearranged social, political, and cultural things in a certain manner. And this method of production of ideological superstructures on the basis of will is precisely what we understand as the collective generation of a demon or an egregore. Thomberg asserts, and this may be the reason why he has been so well received by Roman Catholic officials, that there is a clear distinction between the mystical body of Christ and the church triumphant, and the egregore of the church in the political world. He writes, if there are egregores of initiation orders and religious and other communities, they are always negative. The egregore of Catholicism, for example, is its parasitic double, the existence of which it would be futile to deny, which manifests itself as fanaticism, cruelty, diplomatic wisdom, and excessive pretensions. But insofar as the positive spirits of communities are concerned, they are never egregores, but rather they are entities from the 10 hierarchies. 10 because of the 10th hierarchy, that of mankind, is included here. Now understand, I'd debate this. I don't agree with this. I don't see how you can, how shall we say, segregate a thought. They are all in essence of thought. Again, this shows me that this is human injection into creating yet another sub-egregore. It is therefore a human soul, an angel, or an archangel. What did he just say? It is therefore a human soul, an angel, or an archangel who assumes responsibility for the direction of a human community in a positive sense. Thus, it is not at all an egregore, but rather St. Francis himself, who is the spiritual director of the Franciscan order. It is similarly so for the church. Its guiding spirit is Jesus Christ. Folks, this is so deep. I mean, this. Ay. Now think about what is being said here. So we've covered the gamut in just the short little time we've been here reading this. Political, religious. We subjugate the two by bifurcating them into subcategories, good, evil. But yet, the subjective thought here is that this is a thought. And if a thought form is the result of a thought, yeah. Okay. If there are excuse me. There we go. He goes on to say that no, there is the word, and there are egregores before whom humanity bows down. There is revelation of divine truth and the manifestation of the will of human beings. There is the cult of God and that of idols made of man. The word of idols operates simultaneously in the history of the human race. This creates a razor sharp, really, and let us emphasize thin distinction between the notion of an egregore as universally evil because it is generated by humanity, and the Christian faith, by which Tomberg means the Roman Catholic Church, as ultimately positive because it is generated by God through Christ. Well, I guess Mr. Tomberg just was an asshole who just wanted to ignore history. Because what do we have through the Christian church? Rape, pedophilia, murder. I mean, within all the Abrahamic religions, this is always the trait. So I'm confused. So how did the human who now becomes by the Christian faith, because if you don't have a human, faith is irrelevant. Or unless you're going to tell me that spiritual beings must have faith. Is that what you're saying? Are you telling me that an angel must have faith? Are you telling me a demon must have faith? Are you telling me that faith carries over into the ethereal realm once you drop your body? This is what it's saying. We continue. This point is theologically sound. I disagree. I just proved it right there. But is also clearly subjective. Really. It is no different from the Tibetan Buddhists' need to control the narrative and attempt to keep all discussion of Buddhism within the hermetically sealed and circular framework of Tibetan Buddhism and culture. While there is some truth to it, at the end of the day, it cannot hold up to reason and is simply an article of faith. That's all it is. Every religion, every cult, every societal clique, club, narrative is really nothing more than an extension of the individual's faith. Deep, deep stuff. This is class, folks. This is not your normal mind-numbing entertainment. If you find this entertaining, I love it. This view, as presented by Tomberg, immediately confronts us with an unbridgeable dualism of almost Manichean proportions. The only way for humanity to escape the power of its own creations, that by their nature are evil, That's the problem, is to surrender completely to God, who is nothing more than an egregore. It appears that we are being told to accept the egregore that is not an egregore. Well, how do you justify that, folks? How do you define God now? No God has ever manifested before the whole of humanity. None. None has ever gotten its picture taken. Besides scientific metaphysical rationale for all egregores being evil is given. Now, this is just, again, we're listening to thoughts nearly 100, 150 years ago, and you can see what they created, why they have these thought beings that are cannibalistic. He writes, in order to engender a psychic or astral entity, it is necessary that the psychic and mental energy that you produce to this effect coagulates, enfolds a form that is not produced by radiation. It is produced only by coagulation or enfoldment. Now, good only radiates. It does not at all enfold. It is always evil which does. You cannot engender an egregore of universal love because the quality of will and imagination required to this end is not held together as a formation centered in itself, but forms an alliance, one of radiating movement with the activity of the world of spiritual hierarchies. The psychic and mental energy of love would never give rise to the formation of an individual psychic or astral entity. It would immediately and wholly put itself at the disposal of the celestial hierarchies, saints, and God. Don't know which God, don't know which saints. Therefore, although one can certainly engender demons, one cannot engender artificial angels. Really? Maybe I just see things differently, Mr. Tomberg, but I find your reasoning to be insane. Because he's describing a process that he's making up two physical laws for. And that's not rational thought. That's so steeped into dualism that I think, dear, that this Mr. Tomberg, unfortunately, in my opinion, was very confused. He was obviously very he was serving an egregore of the Catholicism, which is not Christianity. It's a form of Christianity, but it's not Christianity. Catholicism is very Kabbalistic, metaphysical, if you really study it. Let's go on. I'm giving Tomberg a rough time here. However, Tomberg does give some practical, insightful advice on how to avoid creating or strengthening negative forces. Do you see what happens here? He's already framed a prison that you can't get out of. And apparently, he never did get out of. It's so based upon fear. And to prove my point, let's read what he writes. Let us be silent. To be silent is more than to keep things secret. It is more even than to guard oneself from profaning the holy things to which a respectful silence is owed. He's just backing my points up right here. To be silent is, above all, the great magical commandment of not engendering demons through our arbitrary will and imagination. You see, the problem with Mr. Tomberg here is that he has so degraded the experience of being human. And the problem is that he's already subjected himself as a slave. He had the keys in his hands, but what he did was merely make sure that the door is even more locked. He writes on, and remember, only a slave is commanded to be silent. Well, I don't give a fuck who you think you are as a god. I will not be silent. And yes, I dropped the F-bomb, because that's exactly what I tell them. That is our modern day vernacular. It's an expressive word that both can be good and bad, and sometimes in between. But it certainly gets the thought across very quickly, doesn't it? He goes on and says, let us resign ourselves. Well, wait a minute. If I dissect the word resign, that means I am giving up something that I already possessed. I already hold that title. So here we are to resign ourselves, therefore, to the great work of contributing constructively to tradition, the spiritual, Christian, Hermetic, scientific tradition. He would not fit well in today's world. He would not. He would see us all as reprobates. He continues to write, let us thoroughly immerse ourselves in it. Let us study it. Let us practice it. Let us cultivate it. Lastly, let us work not in order to overthrow, but in order to build. I want no part of this building. I was a part of it, and it sucked. Let us range ourselves amongst the builders of the great cathedral of mankind's spiritual tradition. Let us try to contribute to it. And what he is saying is that we don't have the intelligence, nor are we advanced enough spiritually to bring forth an ever-evolving spiritual revelation. The problem with today's religions, and I'll say politics, is that they're stuck in the past. And as I understand life evolves. So why would not spiritual knowledge evolve as well? Why should I be held to failed constructs that have not benefited our species one iota? They tell us it's about love, but all they show is hate and contempt. They say it's about healing, but all they give us is disease and misery. They say it's about the goodness of prospering our souls, but they break our bodies. I'm not buying it. May the holy scriptures be holy for us. May the sacraments be sacraments for it. So what Tomberg is saying, that, partaking of the drinking of blood and the eating of human flesh is, well, you're not smart enough to question that. May the hierarchy of spiritual authority be hierarchy of authority for us. No, I say it's time to bring down these hierarchies. It's time to release them, put them out to pasture. It's time to bring in the new gods, the new goddesses, new ideas. Their foundations are corrupt. They are nothing but rubble. They cannot even hold up their own ideologies. But yet we're told to submit to these. I don't see the evidence that it's done us well as a species. He says, may the perennial philosophy and also the truly scientific science of the past and present have friends in us, and should it be the case, respectful collaborators. This is what the commandment to be silent entails, the commandment of not engendering demons. Well, in that case, we might as well do what happened to Neo in the Matrix. Might as well just sew up our lips I mean, because obviously it's a flaw. We shouldn't have lips. See, folks, there is an answer. This is knowledge. But if you can't confront it as you're reading it, then why read it at all? Like Sadhu, Tomberg notes the physical locations can be an anchor point for spiritual forces. Yeah, we know this. We know this through ley lines and what have. However, he makes a distinction based on theological assumptions between talisman and sacraments. Oh, yes. Once again, we got the dualism, stating that the holy sites, relics, and sacraments are not talismans, storage containers of energy. Then what the hell is the Ark of the Covenant? But rather gateways through which an inexhaustible energy flows. Again, it's implying that over in the spiritual realm, things are messed up more than they are here. Because follow me on this, folks. If as above, so below, so below, as above, then that means the etheric spiritual realm is in chaos. Because we're in chaos. Now, this is very concerning if you really start analyzing this. Something is wrong. We haven't even been told about this. How are we expecting a new day here to be ascended? Ascended into what? For it would seem that the spiritual realm is in chaos. There seems to be one hell of a war going on. So are we just simply playing kumbaya with each other here? I mean, what do we do here? Something's wrong. Well, how fortuitous as we get into the next section. Disinformation. The devil made me do it. Despite his claims of not discussing the metaphysics of evil, Tomberg does take a slight detour down the road of attempting to explain the role of evil in the world. He speaks of the hierarchies of the left. Again, the dualism. Those beings often referred to as the Quellapoth and the Quabala, whom we have mentioned before. These demonic beings are the counterpart of the hierarchy of angels. Mr. Tomberg, did it ever occur to you that they might be one of the same species? Tomberg places them in a scriptural context, such as in Job. There we go. Always with the book of Job, wherein the purpose of the demon is to test the spirituality of man. That's flawed. Anyway, here he says the demon will only leave once it is convinced of an individual's holiness. Define holiness into which context, please? It acts as if it were as the devil's advocate in the trial of the soul before God, for one is only holy once good and evil agree upon it. Wow. A slave mentality of such the potentiality of a great mind, decimated by religion, ideology, fear. The other role is that of a demon who is controlled and put into service. By the way, let me just back up, because what this is implying, that this God is a psychopath, multiple personalities, and cannot be trusted because he does not trust his own creation. And if a spiritual being who claims to be of the highest of the hierarchies does not trust himself, how can anyone else trust in him? There would be no need for any ritual testing of the soul, because if he is in fact all good, would not all of his creations thus be all good. I have to have a drink on that one. Free thinkers, baby. The other role, again, this is similar to the story of King Solomon, controlling the demons to build the temple. Why? Or the notion within the Tibetan Buddhism of the Padmasvaprapha, binding demons to defend the Dharma. The most interesting example given by Tomberg, however, concerns demonic influence as simply intent upon distraction. That's interesting. There are also entities from the hierarchies of the left accused of making use of ridicule, farce, as a means of demonstrating their prosecuting thesis. An entity belonging to this latter category is known in the Western world. This is Mephistopheles, who is the portrait of Goethe painted with astonishing exactness. The ridicule of Mephistopheles makes use of and has a serious foundation. It is primarily human pretension and snobbery that turns into ridicule. Here is an example of this. At this point, Tomberg tells the story of Hugh Clayton Randall Stevens, describing him as a retired journalist who was financially secure, spiritually indifferent, and living a life of leisure with his wife. Then, in February 1925, he suddenly started getting messages from an entity who claimed to be the Egyptian god Osiris. Osiris revealed to the journalist of all the ancient wisdom of Egypt that archaeologists had yet to discover, but someday would. Soon, Randall Stevens began to draw images, having never before seen them. The style was simplistic yet pompous, and it detailed the struggle between good and evil, with the allegorical reference to Atlantis. Several books of this channeled material was published by Writer of London, and in time, it was articulated that the unsuspecting channeler of ancient wisdom was also the reincarnation of Pharaoh Akhenaten. Of course, Tomberg insists this is not Osiris, but the spirit of Mephistopheles, who, with the whole revelation, only a farce made by him for the credulous. No, for spiritual snobs. The book even contained a note from the author stating that the reason they are being read is not because of their wisdom, for little is there, but because of how the material is communicated. It is done in such an extraordinary way. It is the fantastic that people are after, not the truth. So help me on this one, group. So they're saying that if you channel from a spirit that was incarnated maybe thousands of years ago, that's impossible. And particularly if it gave information that was not yet known to the known world and then became known. That's impossible. But yet you want to tell me that the Bible was written, particularly the New Testament, of a guy that lived who never wrote a single word some 100 years after, and you're telling me that they had the ability to do that in first person in succinct accuracy. Imagine that. Spiritual snobbery is a fine phrase for it, and one that is echoed in a different manner by Jocelyn Godwin in his book, Atlantis and the Cycles of Time, Prophecies, Traditions, and Occult Revelations, wherein he spends a fair amount of time discussing Randall Stevens. The warning that our civilization is heading for imminent doom is a favorite refrain of the anthologist, and to certain cast of mind, often shared by superior intelligences. It always seems that the present day is on the brink of catastrophe because everyone is so wicked, except, of course, the writer and his or her readers. Of course, they got the golden ticket. They heard from Willy Wonka. Because you see, yeah, if we pause for a minute, we find something a little deeper here. It is not just one person who is being distracted from the search for inner spiritual awakening or truth. No, it is everyone who reads or comes in contact with a book of such banalities. We also see that evil does not need to control anyone. It just needs to influence the right one. And although this influence, not even to control people, simply to keep them distracted. These themes are addressed by renowned British philosopher and author Colin Wilson in his book, Mind Parasites, and by British author and occult Gary Lachman in The Secret History of Consciousness. However, with the exceptions of Lachman's book, which is largely a restating of Wilson's premise presented in a historical context, few writers on the paranormal have approached this critical point. Evil does not need to control everyone. It just needs to keep as many people as possible distracted from progressing on the path. This distraction comes in various forms by way of the media, personal electronic devices, video games, movies, television, music, and sports. Mindless political memes are among the most popular manifestations at the moment. This also means that the creators and purveyors of these media and all products produced for them are prime candidates for demonic obsession and possession. How many in Silicon Valley? How many of these Googles? How many in YouTube? How many in Facebook? How many in Twitter are demon possessed? How many people working for these companies are possessed by an entity they have no idea they're possessed of, but yet do its bidding? That's what it's saying. To affect one of them is to reach millions through them. Telepathy and mind control through the media. It should come as no surprise that during the 1930s, now here's the experiment that we're going to be talking about. When mass broadcast media was still in its relative infancy, both the BBC and NBC radio networks undertook a series of mass on-air telepathy tests. Y'all ready for this? NBC did these in cooperation with Zenith Radio Corporation, and as part of them, the original Zener Cards, yes, the most common tool used in ESP testing, were distributed to the public. Zener Cards are a deck of 25 cards consisting of 5 symbols: circle, cross, wavy line, square, and a 5-pointed star. They were created by psychologist Carl Zener, 1903 to 64, and in the 1930s for experiments in psychic research. This work was done in conjunction with J.B. Rhine. Packs were sent to local Zenith radio sales and repair shops for promotional purposes and were also available for purchase in 5 and dime stores. Today, that would be called $5 and $10 stores. These cards were so popular that they were unavailable 2 weeks after their initial issue and had to be reprinted. Think about this, folks. So this is a mass. And the thing I would say about in the 30s, our minds weren't polluted. Today, our minds are cluttered. They're cluttered with more nonsense information that is absolutely not necessary for our advancement, our ascension, or our survival. So here we have millions of people. Oh, let's go on. Specific individuals working in the field of telepathic research included American botanist and founder of parapsychology, J.B. Rhine. He was the founder of the Rhine Research Center located on the campus of Duke University, Durham, North Carolina. The Rhine Research Center is an independent center for the study of the parapsychology. It is the successor organization of the Parapsychology Laboratory at Duke University and is possibly the oldest facility of its kind. It was first called the Foundation for Research on the Nature of Man and the Institute of Parapsychology. Unlike the Parapsychology Laboratory, the Rhine Research Center is not affiliated with Duke University. In The Reach of the Mind, Rhines attests to the telepathic experiments that were conducted by the Zenith Corporation on several occasions in the 20s and the 30s. The 1920s, however, saw a marked rise in interest in telepathy. It was paralleled by a similar increase of public interest in spiritualism and was doubtless affected by it. The tremendous loss of life and the widespread bereavement which took place during the First World War, together with the ensuing uncertainties and shifting values, undoubtedly had the effect of turning men's and women's thoughts towards the possibility of forces beyond the knowledge of science. If we'd only got it right the first time, we were there. They were so freaking close. A mass telepathy experiment was conducted by radio over the Zenith broadcasting station in Chicago in 1923. And a little later, the British Broadcasting Corporation conducted another. Later still, the Scientific American magazine carried out a self-testing program in telepathy, and there were numerous other manifestations of popular interest. Wow. In a booklet, What Well-Known Scientists Say About Telepathy, published in March 1938, by E.F. McDonald Jr., president of the Zenith Radio Corporation, made the following statement. This booklet is intended as primarily as a preliminary report from the Zenith Foundation to its partners in this great adventure of exploration. Necessarily incomplete, it nevertheless sets down a permanent form, some of the best and most scientific contemporary thought on this subject. Even more important than its contributions to the scientific fund of information on the subject of mental phenomena is the fact that this radio series has lifted the entire subject out of the dungeon of prejudice into the white light of serious discussion by millions of people. I want to thank the many scientists, educators, and other speakers who appeared on the Zenith programs for permission to reprint their interviews. I want to express my appreciation to the hundreds of thousands who participated in the Zenith telepathy test and to the many thousands of listeners who sent in their experiences. We got almost 100 in our little group. And I can assure you, we are far more down the line than what they were nearly 100 years ago. And I find it more than curious. Here we are today in what could almost be described as a parallel time. For the conditions that they described in their day is exactly the conditions we have in our day. All right. The preliminary conclusions of the experiments, which lasted for 30 weeks, were compiled and listed in the booklet. They stated, telepathy functions best when strong emotions are involved: enthusiasm, anger, hurt. Telepathic ability varies in individuals as well as at certain times. Almost like the tides, it seems that our abilities in these areas that have been unfortunately blocked from us, full moons, new moons, physical distance has no effect on telepathic communication. Ladies and gentlemen, what we're learning here is a key. This is a golden nugget. Pick it up, put it in your basket. Physical distance has no effect on telepathic communication. Telepathic communication is most often experienced between people with blood or love relationships. Time is not a factor in expressing or experiencing telepathy. Age is not a factor in expressing or experiencing telepathy. Statistical results were based on 250,000 responses, with preliminary results showing that the odds of some of the test results being left to chance were 1, and I believe that's 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 1 and 20 zeros behind it. My hairs are standing up on my arms. Shows that the odds of some of the test results being left to chance. The report went on to state, of greater importance than cold statistics, however, is the repeated testimony of the Zenith Foundation programs of the successful men and women who attributed their success to the conscious or unconscious use of little known mental powers. We do not have to wait until science can explain these powers, but we can use them now in our daily lives merely by heeding the premonitions and impulses which add to success and happiness. And let me tell you something. If you have been bombarded by negative thoughts, say you're involved in something, speak to it, decimate it. Doesn't have the legal right, number one, but nor does it have the power. This is what got me so excited and saying, listen, they had the answers here 100 years ago. But what we do know is that our government then reversed this through the education system and poo-pooing this. Oh, no. Because if you have a nation of telepaths, there's no place a rotten politician can hide. No place a rotten CEO can hide. We'll find you. And not just one, not just 1,000. Woo! Dr. Rhine's book, including New Frontiers of the Mind, we'll be going through this one, and others were listed on the instruction card along with participating radio stations, date, and time. His work is intentionally quoted here because his research has made him one of, if not the only, household name for psychic research. In addition, his research was done well over, and now we know, a half a century ago. This point is brought up to demonstrate that despite extensive evidence of psychic phenomena and ability, the general public believes in it not because of science or statistical reports, but because of personal experience. Wow. Yet, in spite of the massive amount of research since these public experiments were done more than a half a century ago, the scientific community as a whole fails to demonstrate any significant interest in parapsychology or even to show any confidence in the research in which its own members engage. These observations ought to demonstrate that the witnessing of or participation in psychic phenomena, at least as of now, is a predominantly intimate and personal experience. And any scientist involved in psychic research, despite Mr. Dr. Ryan's optimistic view, still places their professional reputation and career in danger. We'll pick up on this, emblem and Martinism. This a lot of people have asked, what is Martinism? What are you going to You're going to learn what Martinism is. Again, wow. Woof, woof. That's all I got to say. Wow. I'm just reading some of the comments. This material again, Mark Stavish, well done, sir. Well done. I mean, this is phenomenal knowledge. And by the time we get started in our little group experience, and it's fashioned right after what they found out nearly 100 years ago. We're psychic beings. Apparently, some of us are really good at it. Apparently, we all possess some of it. And apparently, 250,000 people, that's the largest experiment I've been able to document, says that with practice, you get better. Whew. I'm not sure, John, what that means. I don't get that. But then again, there's, when you're dropping in on the, the chat room, I don't know what that means. So anyway, I know that there is a number of you who are taking this very serious, and I appreciate it. You're definitely in the minority, but I'm telling you what, you're the ones who are the reason I do this. It's not for large mass consumption. It's for the very few. And I really appreciate those who take this seriously. And sadly, most don't. Most won't practice. Most won't discipline their thoughts. Most won't even take the effort to better themselves through that which they've created. It's easier just to, say, well, so anyway, there we go. This is deep stuff, folks. This is probably some of the most revealing knowledge I've come across in a while. So again, and to those of you who've signed up on this to be a part of this, I hope that you really have made a commitment. That's crucial. Otherwise, it's won't really amount to much. All right, folks. I hope some of you really do. Some people are saying they're going to get this book. I hope you do. And if you will read it, I hope most of you are reading 5 or 6 books a week. If you're not, my question is why? Why aren't you? How many books do you read in a month? Thank you, Lost in Space. But this one here, I highly recommend it. I really do. This is one you need in your library, and it's not that thick, but boy, is it filled with some of the most phenomenal. Shannon, you're welcome, dear. Well, Kate, actually, I never graduated high school. So, but yeah, it's deep, and it is, I would, academic level. Well, it's deep thinking, for sure. All right, folks, I've held you up. Hey, Gabriel, what's up? You read it twice. Yeah, I'm on my, this is the 5th time going through this, and I love reading it to the group because it's just a refresher course. This is Jack, you're right, Jack Dreaming. Yep, yeah, absolutely. Hey, Tina Bop, what's up, girl? All right, folks. What is the name of this book? Again, it is called The Egregores, the occult entities that watch over human destinies. Hey, we can change things. What I did learn in here is that less than 100 minds. That's what they're saying. Less than 100 committed, focused minds. I'm anticipating that this is going to get noticed by others outside of our little group because it's some powerful stuff. Hey, Ruth Ann. Well, I'm sorry that you are reluctant to join after certain experiences. I don't know what that means, but remember, you are the master of your own destiny. I don't know what that means, and but it's good just to watch and to learn. There's nothing wrong with that at all. Kate, yep. You're right. And that just goes to show you that there are those of us, they could have put us in the middle of nowhere. And at the end of our journey, we would have ascertained the knowledge that they try so desperately to hide from us. It's so true. And it's critical thinking. It really is. That's the one thing I see that's lacking in society is that critical thinking skills. It's damn sure our politicians don't have it, but all right. Enough of that. Much love to all of you. And I thank you, every guy at ninth grade. You see, there are some really smart people here. I mean, yeah, exactly. And you know what the great thing about that too, Gaia, is that we don't have the student loan debt either. Ay. All right, folks. Check out Nina's channel. TL Clark, how you doing? Hey, C Testa, good to see you as well. Ruth Ann, much love to you, darling. We're happy you're here. It's all part of the journey, and that's how we learn. It's how we all learn. Yeah. All right, everyone. I'm out of here. Thank you again. It's an honor to be amongst such brilliant spirit beings. It humbles me. It really does. And I deeply appreciate all of you. I really do. And again, Linda says, when I was 12 years, they were telling me school was a waste of time. Yeah. Good will hunting for sure. I like that. All right, folks. Much love to you all. All right.